We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. By the time you listen to this, it's Sunday. We're recording it Friday night. Ed was yesterday. Tonight, we have Eric, the Analytical Iowan. And this is a good combo to have. We get Ed to settle us down and straighten us out historically. Then we can get the details with Eric because there's so much shit going on. It just keeps getting worse and worse. And Eric, thanks for joining us again. It's always a pleasure to see you on the show. It's a relief because I know I'm going to learn something.
Well, thanks for having me. I love being on here. I love doing my best to, clear people's minds a little bit, let them be uh, at ease. Because there's a lot of people freaking out. Uh, Done a lot of lives lately, my own, yours, truckers, um, and then Pamela and Tiffany. They both jump in. They ran their other lives as well. The last weekend, I think it was Pamela's live. I was on the panel for 6 hours
Fuck.
off and on, and next thing I knew, it was 7 in the morning.
I'm doing a live yesterday, my own live, and we do an hour and a half. I don't usually go longer than that. So we go an hour and a half, and I'm messing with it afterwards. And then I get a invite from Trucker like 20 minutes after I get off. And I'm thinking, if I should be a nice guy and go to it, but I got some shit to do. I've been talking all fucking day. I'm just not in the mood to talk more shit. I just
I,
had a live.
I jumped in on that one, and we went till, was it 1 in the morning our time? I
Wow.
think.
I can do that every
Yeah,
once in a while, but I'm getting too old for that shit.
but a
It's
lot of
it's
people
it's
getting concerned and nervous. So
yeah, there's a lot of people who contact me who are upset and freaked out and worried about this and that and everything else. And I try to explain to them it does no good to be upset about something you can't control. We just got to keep doing what we're doing. We will come out of this ultimately. The idea that things are turning bad and things are starting to spin out of control, not a surprise, because that's where we know somebody with a personality like Donald Trump, this is how he ends up. He spins out of control, he crashes, and he takes a lot of people with him. That's inevitable. So for me, the only thing I'm looking forward to doing is having this crash come as quickly as possible so we can get beyond it and start at least headed in the direction of normal again.
yeah, and that crash. I mean, just his press conferences the last few days. Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the bullshit he says. I mean, I read you that quote in your live the other night. Well, it had to be a surprise because we needed to and what we did and we were very good at and there wasn't a thought anywhere in there. Nothing. It was just words.
Well, then he compared it to bombing Pearl Harbor with the prime minister of Japan sitting right next to him. Talk about tactless, uncouth, stupid motherfucker. The thing about it is that Japanese prime minister, she's kind of a Trump humping kind of freak too in Japan. So she probably enjoyed it. But under normal circumstances, it would be an absolute embarrassment to sit there and watch our president try to make that clever quip or joke. It's embarrassing. And I, for the life of me, can't see why there are people out there that still think he's the greatest guy in the world. If that situation or the many other situation doesn't give you a warning that this guy is not of a right in his right mind, I don't know what fucking more he has to do.
Yeah, I mean that the thing with that is um he's not in his right mind. We know that. We know
No,
he's
hell
not
no.
in his right mind.
Hell no.
And the whole thing is we're the only ones to see it. MAGA still cheers for him and they treat him like he's a god or something like that. Thing is, you and I both know if it was a Democrat talking like he does, their calls for the 25th Amendment, the calls for impeachment would be loud. They'd be absurd coming from the right.
Well, not only the right, you would get it from the left too. There would be certain members of the left screaming about it too. That's the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans will side with Donald Trump no matter what, no matter how fucked up he is. But Democrats would probably step up and say, dude, that's a little too far. You either stop it or we're taking you out.
Yeah, I mean, the Democrats would say enough's enough, dipshit. You know, I don't get it. Republicans are willing to continue to go to bat for him. And even Mike Johnson, he sits there, gets embarrassed by Donnie, and he can't wait for more. He must have an embarrassment kink or something.
Yeah, yeah. There's something off with him because I don't know how he can continue doing what he's doing, just getting his ass kicked all over the place, unless he's, into BDSM and he's submissive. That could be. The big thing we've got going on now is the war, obviously, and this war was unnecessary. It was unprovoked. He's trying to claim that they had. He's not only claiming that they had nuclear weapons, that they were going to use it in the next couple of days. He actually said that, which is ridiculous. Stephanie Rule had a chance to talk to him on the phone, and she was just amazed by the stupid shit he says. But we're in this war right now, and I think Donald Trump really believed he'd go in there and blow him up for about 3 days and be the hero, and it'd all be over. And then when it wasn't, I think he's really confused, and that's part of why he's spiraling now because it's not only not what he expected, but it's also going very badly for him in this country with oil prices and all this shit. I think he's kind of freaking out at this point.
Oh, he's definitely freaking out. He expected it to be a situation where he shows up, like you said, they bomb him for a day or two, or he thought it was going to be like what they did last year. They went in, did their mission, dropped some bombs on a base, did really no damage, didn't actually affect anything. And Iran basically said, yeah, we're going to throw one missile that way. We're going to tell you it's coming. And, you know, there was some minor structural damage, and that was the end of that.
Yeah.
He thought it'd be the same, and it wasn't. What happened is they go in, they launch the strike, take out the leader of Iran and a bunch of the other leadership, not just the Ayatollah, and then they expect he thinks, well, Iran's going to just roll over and accept it. No, I mean we wouldn't if they came in, took out Donnie and everything and some members of Congress or something, we wouldn't just roll over and take it, especially unprovoked,
Well, the
as much
interesting
as we
thing
can't
is,
stand him.
right, but the interesting thing is the reason we're in this is because Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel manipulated him to come on in. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that we've been trying to get the Americans involved in this for 40 years, and nobody's been stupid enough to take the bait until Donald Trump. And I'm sure the reason he thought it would be so quick is because Benjamin Netanyahu said, yeah, just go in there and bomb the piss out of him. You'll be a hero. We'll win this thing. See, Donald Trump, remember when he bombed Iran last year or whenever it was?
Yeah.
You know why he did that? I'll tell you why he did that because there was fighting between Israel and Iran, and Israel was doing pretty well against Iran. And he said, I want to hop on that fucking high. I want to hop on that success and try to benefit from that. And so I think Benjamin Netanyahu caught that and made him believe that he would be successful and he would be a hero. And then, of course, it's not. They start, Iran starts bombing Middle Eastern countries and American military installments, and of course, closing the Strait of Hormuz. And Donald Trump says straight up, nobody knew they would do that. We were surprised that they do that. Now, I'm not an expert by any means, but I know what happens in the Middle East. We've seen this before. I knew for sure they were going to hit other military installments in other Middle Eastern countries, and I knew they would shut down the Strait of Hormuz because that's their ace in the hole.
Well, what's his name? The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General, is it Kane?
Kane. Yeah, Dan Kane.
Yeah, Dan Kane. I wanted to say Dean Kane, but I knew that wasn't right because that's the actor.
Same
Um,
difference. He's a Trumper too.
but apparently told Donnie in the meeting, hey, dipshit, they're going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And Donnie did what Donnie does and says, I know better.
Yeah, he said he didn't think they were going to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And then when they shut down the Strait of Hormuz, he has to cover his ass. So he goes, well, I knew they were going to do that. And I knew it was going to get bad. In fact, I thought it'd get worse than it is now. It's not that bad right now. He's always trying to qualify, his mistakes. It wasn't his mistake. He knew it all the time. It just wasn't as bad as he thought. And I don't think he's really understands the impact on the country at this point when you've got oil going up like it has, and you've got gas prices going up by a buck or more a gallon. That's pretty significant to the people in towns all over the country. Now, he's kind of spinning out because this isn't going the way he wants it to go. He's trying to figure a way out of it. He's talked to the allies, and we really don't have any allies. Help me keep the Strait of Hormuz open. And they said, fuck yourself. This is your shit. He's tried to get some kind of uh, deal with Iran, and they've said, we're not cutting any deals. So he's kind of stuck. Today, meaning Friday, he said, the war might be winding down a little bit because I think we've reached all our objectives, which is interesting because while he's saying that, he's sending more boats and troops on the ground into the Middle East. And he said, I'm not going to do boots on the ground. Well, if he wants to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, that's the only way to do it, is put boots on the ground. If he puts boots on the ground, he's going to be in for a big surprise. They're going to send 10,000 troops in there. They're going to come out with like 100,000 people to fight against him. And it doesn't matter if they have better weapons or not, just sheer numbers is going to overwhelm them. The last thing he wants to do is put military personnel on the ground in Iran. It won't go well.
Well, the last thing you would think he wants to do is put military personnel with boots on the ground. But we all know he's not in the right mind. He's not in the right head, right? He's demented from dementia, maybe a bit of Alzheimer's mixed in. You got whatever they're giving him to keep him halfway alert. And he doesn't know shit from shit.
Well, and he was
He
stupid in the first place. So all that together doesn't make for a great recipe
No, I mean, he's got what, like an 80 IQ, something like that, sub 90
on a good day.
on a good day. That was before any sort of impairment.
Yeah.
And, you know, he- does he think it's going to be like playing a video game? Oh, you send him in. Oh, well, that didn't work out. I can hit reset. We try again. No, it doesn't work that way. He's playing Risk with real people
Yeah.
and he doesn't care. Hell, he turned a dignified transfer ceremony into a fundraising email when he's got no more elections to run.
Yeah.
He's
What's he
just out
fundraising
grifting
for? Yeah.
for himself to grift.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, if this goes into April, they're talking about oil prices going up to about $180 a barrel. And that's a significant increase. That's like triple what we were paying on February 27th. We were paying $67 a barrel and prices were okay. Now he does this, it's up over $1 a gallon more, at least where I'm at, and it's continuing to increase. We get this. This is the weirdest thing. This is a perfect example of Donald Trump. When Donald Trump makes a threat and it doesn't, they don't, they don't bend to him. He just makes a bigger threat, and the bigger threat is always a dumber threat. Now Israel bombed the piss out of this gas field, one of the largest gas fields in the world, South Pars. And immediate kickback from that because that chewed up like 20% of the LG, the liquid gas, which is going to be very harmful to heating in Europe and India and some other parts of that area. So he was upset about it, and he said that I didn't know anything about it or I was against it. He keeps changing it all the time, and Israel comes out and says, "Oh, we talked about it. He knew exactly what would happen." But what he didn't count on was Iran then retaliating and hitting other infrastructure, oil infrastructure, and that scared Donnie. So he decides he's going to make a bigger threat. He says, well, if you keep doing that, we're going to blow up all of that island, North and South Pars, which would be massively destructive to the economy of the world. But that's where his head goes. If you aren't scared about this, I'm going to scare you with something bigger, even if it's cutting my own nose off to spite my face.
Yeah, that's typical Donald Trump. Well, you didn't want us doing that. Well, we're going to make it even worse. But
Yeah.
all that's going to do is cause prices to go even higher. I looked it up here real quick. Highest price per barrel on record is $147 per barrel for oil.
Oh,
That was back in 2008. And at that point, gas peaked at 4.11 before crashing down to $1.67 at the end of the year. But gas was up to three, almost $4 a gallon back then. It cost the Republicans the '08 election. The housing crisis, high oil and gas prices. That's how we got Barack Obama with, he almost had in that first half of his first term a 60-seat majority in Congress.
right, right. Um, just it's amazing. The last time we've had that kind of high oil was coming out of the debacle that is George W. Bush. Then Obama comes in, fixes it. Donald Trump comes in, ruins it again. Joe Biden comes in, fixes it. Now Donald Trump is destroying it in historic terms. It may be worse than the 2007, 2008 situation because this is impacting a lot of the markets. Now, the difference between the oil issue in 2008 and the oil issue today, in 2007, 2008, I'm not sure what caused it, might have been OPEC or whatever, but they're destroying oil industry infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do
It's
they
not,
have to say we're going to charge less, we got to fix all this shit and however long it takes, not to mention the disruption in the distribution of this shit. This is stuff that you can't fix in a day or two. It's just not possible.
no, it's not. It's not possible to fix all of it in a day or two. It needs to be uh, dealt with,
Yeah.
and you're gonna have to rebuild infrastructure, and then you add in the fact that you know Iran's not going to want to deal with us, so we're not even going to be able to buy from them. A bunch of the other countries in the Middle East, the OPEC nations, are they going to want to sell to us because we're responsible for their infrastructure getting bombed, the strait being closed, everything being fucked over? I mean, they may go back down for the rest of the world, but they're not going to go back down for us as quick because people aren't going to want
Yeah.
to deal with us. Anybody with
I
half a
heard,
brain cell should be able to see it.
yeah, I heard today that, and I don't know how many weapons we buy from foreign countries, but I heard there's a couple of foreign countries that have denied they aren't going to sell weapons to the United States at all. Now, I'm sure we have plenty of weapons on our own, but the moment you have countries that were our allies telling us we don't want to deal with you, people have to understand that's a big problem. We are strong for a few reasons. We're a strong country because we have a lot of money. We're strong because we have a big military. But one of the main strengths we have in this country is good relationships and friends all over the world because you need those friends in order to do certain things like what we're doing in Iran. When you lose those friends, you lose an important part of your strength and you become decidedly less strong. And that's where we're at right now.
Oh yeah, I mean when our allies are sitting there saying, we're not going to help you, who do we turn to? Donald Trump wants to turn around and try to unilaterally leave NATO. Now, luckily, he can't.
No,
They
he can't.
packed it into the 2024 defense spending authorization. It would require an act of Congress, but he's fucking around with NATO and saying, "Well, you really should come help us, or there'll be consequences." It's going to take years, if not multiple terms, to get our allies back on track. And I said before, it's going to take something big, I think, to bring our allies back around, whether that's a constitutional amendment preventing somebody like Donnie from ever being president again, more safeguards in place, limits on presidential power, something. Because,
Well, we can
you
probably get them back as allies, but we're going to have to prove it to them. They're not just going to take our word on it, nor should they.
I mean, they took our word for the most part when we got, Joe Biden, right? Joe
Right, right.
Biden comes in. I mean, we were dancing in the streets literally after he gets elected. We tell the world, hey, everything's better. We got Joe Biden in, the adults are back in charge. And then 4 years later, we put the idiot back in charge again. The inmates are running the asylum.
Yeah. What do you take from this request by Pete Hegseth to the White House where they need $200 billion for this war? And I remind folks, the budget for the U.S. military, the Defense Department, is nearly $1 trillion. It's $997 billion. This was a war we shouldn't have been in, and they want another 200 billion. And just so people understand how much that is, the entire defense budget for China is 350 billion, about a third of what we give our defense department. And Russia, everybody's so worried about Russia. Their defense budget is 150 million, a billion. So their entire budget is less than this little extra that Pete Hegseth wants. And I don't know why they would need it if they have $1 trillion budget. Um, to me, it just seems like, well, we're in a position. Let's see if we can get it. I
I
don't
think
think
that's
they're
part of
going to
it.
get it. Yeah, I do. I think, well, what the fuck? We're going to grift this shit. We're going to get the 200 billion and we might as well get it while the getting's good.
Yeah, I think they want what they want. They're going to try to get this extra money and they're going to try to ride a wave of patriotism. I saw somebody else on TikTok talking about it, and they made a good point, and I wish I could remember who it was. But you know how Donald Trump likes to recreate events that other presidents have done, right?
Yeah.
He tries to recreate the famous war room picture of Barack Obama the day they got not Saddam Hussein, Bin Laden.
Yeah.
That's an important photo, right? They
Right.
they want to recreate that. Well, somebody suggested that he is trying to recreate the wave of patriotism after 9/11 that allowed Bush to sail into another term. Because we were still riding that patriotism high 3 years later
Yeah.
after it all happened. That's why people are worried that there's going to be some kind of a false flag attack, that Iran's going to be maybe able to hit the West Coast, because of course it would be the West Coast because Donald Trump hates every state on that West Coast.
Right.
And, that he could try to, he wants to recreate that because he's terrified of what can happen next. I don't remember if it was on your live or Truckers or both. We were talking about what happens Donald Trump post presidency if he makes it. He's terrified of the inside of a jail cell. He
He
knows
is.
if he gets kicked out of office, or he comes to 2029 and he hasn't found a way to run for a third term, that a jail cell may be awaiting him, and that terrifies him more than anything.
Well, I think that people are under the misconception that because he got this immunity deal from the Supreme Court, that doesn't cover everything. He is still at risk for being charged for any number of things. I mean, there's bribery, there's and those things aren't covered under this immunity thing. It's about anything that he would do. I will say this for example, him going into Iran and bombing the piss out of him. He would probably be safe because you could say that was something I did as a president. But going over to Saudi Arabia and lining his pockets with billions of dollars, that's not part of a president's job. And once he's out of power and everything is starting to sink, these courts are going to behave a lot differently than we've seen before, including the same Supreme Court. Once once things go south for Donald Trump, there ain't going to be nobody willing to help him because they're going to look complicit in this too. So uh, Donald Trump is at risk for some legal action, and I think he understands that.
I think so. And I think he's also worried about legal action stemming from everything connected to Epstein. And he is terrified of whatever that may bring. He's not even sure, I think, you know, of what tomorrow is going to bring, right? He knows that if they lose the midterms, he is probably getting impeached again. And we've talked about it before. There is going to be less reason for the Republicans to save Donald Trump the next time.
Right. Yeah,
They,
there's
there
no value in it.
no, he's got no more elections to run. I read an article saying JD hasn't decided whether or not he even wants to attempt to run in 28. He may not run. I mean, after Donald Trump, the Republican Party is going to be in a shambles.
Yeah. I don't know if you, I mean, I know you were working all day today, so you probably didn't see this, but with regards to the Epstein files, everybody worries that people are forgetting about it, and people are not forgetting about it. As much as Donald Trump would like that, they just aren't forgetting about it. But Dan Goldman stood on the floor of the House of Representatives and read that letter that implicates Donald Trump in the sexual abuse of a young girl. And you probably remember the story. It's a story about how Donald Trump sat down, unzipped his pants, grabbed this girl's head to try to force her to do something. She does it. She bites him. He punches her in the head and then said, "Get her out of here." He talked about that on the floor. Uh, Now, anybody with the Epstein files and Donald Trump say, well, there's nothing about Donald Trump. He's not in it. He's not implicated. Well, this particular letter does implicate him. This woman was interviewed 4 times, so there is a lot of credibility with this thing. And there are a couple of others that we don't know if it's the same thing or a separate situation, but I can assure you that if Donald Trump did it once, he did it multiple times as far as abusing a young girl. And as this continues to happen, it gets worse and worse for Donald Trump. At first, he's not in there are no files. He's not in the files. Well, just generically in the files. And now we're getting this information about him being involved in the assault of young girls. It's steadily getting worse for him, and he's going to have to address it ultimately. And we know Donald Trump will fuck it up and he'll implicate himself anyway. He'll say, yeah, but she liked
Yeah.
it. That he'll do something stupid like that.
Well, I mean, you saw when he was talking and trying to drum up support for his voter ID bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, you'll get it from your daughter when she's of age, like 6. Or, I mean, he's gonna fuck it up. I'm just trying to find
Well,
that the
we should
comments
talk
here.
about we should talk while you're doing that. We'll talk about the Save Act. I know there's a lot of people worried about the Save Act. That Donald Trump is going to co-opt the elections. We said it on the live yesterday. We'll say it again. The Save Act is not going to pass. There's just not enough votes for it in either the Republican Party and certainly not the Democratic Party. You need 60 votes for it to pass the Senate, and it's not going to happen. There's a lot of machinations going on in the Senate talking about this. So we're going to try this, so we're going to try that. And that's why people are nervous. But you have to understand the reason they're doing that, these people know that it's not going to pass. They know it's going to fail, but they have to keep Donald Trump happy. Well, keep trying. We can do it. You can do it. Pull this fucking miracle out of a bag. So they are doing all this as a performance for Donald Trump just to keep him happy. But that doesn't make it any more likely that this is going to pass. If this passes, I would be surprised. If this passes, we've got a lot of problems with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, no, the SAVE Act is dead. But as we've talked about before, what the whole point of them pushing for the SAVE Act is something to run on, right?
Yeah,
They
yeah, you're right.
it's it's similar to what happened with 2024 Donald Trump and immigration. They had an immigration bill. Donald Trump says, "Kill it. I want to run on immigration in the fall." And he ran on immigration and it worked. Save Act is something similar. What they want to do is they want to have something they can turn around, say, "Well, see, those damn evil Democrats, they cheated because they didn't want to put in strict voter ID requirements and make it so that um, illegal immigrants couldn't vote. So when they win, oh, clearly they cheated and they want to run their ads. Well, all these Democrats, they voted against the SAVE Act. So they want this or they want that. It's the same bullshit that they're doing with regards to they passed a bill in the House where if you defraud Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, welfare of any kind, and you're here illegally, you get deported. Well, those are already things that happen. You get caught doing it, that's a crime. You commit a crime and you're here undocumented, hey, you're out the door. You get deported.
Right, right.
It's already, but they wanted to try to pass it so they can run ads on those damn evil Democrats trying to block this so-called common sense stuff. It's
Yeah,
what they do.
yeah. Yeah, and that's what Donald Trump has done from the very beginning. A lot of people think that he's got all these plans. All he's really doing is setting the table so he has excuses after the fact or arguments why he lost. In 2020, he knew he was probably going to lose. That's why he talked about all this rigged activity with the 2020 election, and that's what he's doing now. He knows in 2026 it's not going to go well. Even he, as dumb as he is, understands that it's not going to go well. So he's trying to set the table to give him plenty of arguments after the fact. See, they cheated here, they cheated. It's not even about changing the election, it's about protecting his ego and his
Mm-hmm.
perception. And if that doesn't work, he'll blame it
110%.
on somebody. He'll blame it on somebody else. But it can't be his fault, and that's kind of what he's preparing us for.
Oh no, there's no way he would ever accept it being his fault. He can't do anything wrong in his own mind, right? He's got to be perfect. And if he loses the midterms, and he looks like he is going to, um, he's he's got to have an excuse. I mean, he had an excuse all the way back in 2016 when he lost
Yeah,
the Iowa caucuses to Ted Cruz. He came out, oh, they're just rigged against me. They don't like me because I'm an outsider. No, they don't like. We didn't like it because I thought Iowa was smarter than that to vote for you.
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Well, um, yeah, he wants to make excuses. He's used to losing and then trying to distract or divert away from it, make it somebody else's fault or somebody else's problem. And he's kind of doing that. I mean, I think he's got enough people around him with all that's going on, the high oil prices, the Epstein files, um, deportation, deporting people. None of it is playing off well. In fact, I'd heard that the Republicans, Donald Trump's administration, have been telling the Republicans to go kind of cool it on the deportations. Apparently, people don't like that. They're just realizing that now. So you don't hear them talking about deportations as much. That doesn't mean they're not still doing some fucked up shit with ICE. They are. but they're trying to keep it on the DL because they finally realized that it's not a popular fucking thing. They honestly believed it was going to be popular. And while they were doing it and it wasn't popular, they still somehow believed this was going to benefit them. It is until now in February or March of 2026 that, hey, that, that's not a good, they don't like that. How about those polls? Um, so they're kind of uh, behind the eight ball here. They're figuring this stuff out too late. It's what we talked about before about these people jumping off of Donald Trump's bandwagon once he got into office, but they stuck with it and they stuck with it. And I think at this point, anybody's jumping off now, and there'll be plenty that do. It's too fucking late. Too much damage has been done.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole thing is ridiculous. Um, they're not going to be able to jump ship and try to save face. They're going to want to, and I think you're going to see more do it after their primaries are over.
I think
Um,
before the midterms, but after the primaries.
at, that way, Donald Trump can't fuck up with them being on the ballot in November. You know,
Yeah.
what they're trying to avoid is look what happened in Texas. John Cornyn was not the biggest Trump humper, but what happens? He comes out and Donald Trump instead hasn't endorsed anybody, and you had Ken Paxton squeak in there, and it's forcing a runoff election.
Right.
In a normal situation, Cornyn should have won that with 80 to 90% of the vote,
As an
being the
incumbent.
incumbent.
Yeah. A lot of people were wondering who is he going to endorse, Cornyn or Paxton. Now, I think he was going to endorse Cornyn until Paxton said, "Yeah, I'm not leaving anyway. I'm sticking it out through the whole thing, whether you endorse him or not." And after that, people said, "Who do you think he's going to endorse?" I said, "I don't think he's going to endorse anybody, at least until the primary's over. He will after the primary's over, whoever the Republican candidate is." But Donald Trump has an aversion to being on the losing team. And that's so
Mhm.
close, he doesn't want to take a risk of picking the wrong guy because he has been noted for doing that.
Well, a lot of his picks, a lot of his supportees have lost, and another one of his could end up losing here coming up, and that's Clayton Fuller, the Republican running in the runoff for Georgia's 14th district, Marjorie Taylor Greene's
Right,
seat.
right.
Sean Harris could beat him. And what the fuck's Donald Trump going to say if that seat that has been safely Republican for who knows how long, flips? He,
Well, even with Texas, when you look at it, it's kind of unprecedented in that you've got Paxton and you've got Cornyn. And when Tallarica goes up against either one of them, he beats them either by 1 point or 2 point. Granted, it's close, but in Texas, in this particular race, a Senate seat, we haven't seen it this close with a Democrat ever, at least, in 30 years.
well,
Um,
we've seen it close. Like people were saying it was going to be within a couple points for, I think it was Colin Allred against Ted Cruz, but it was
yeah,
close with Colin Allred trailing. Not
right.
We haven't had a Democrat leading the polls this early. I mean, if Texas flips blue for the Senate, that changes the ball game. I mean, I think Texas may have to be a must pick up for the Democrats to actually have a legitimate chance of taking the Senate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they lose a seat in Texas, it's going to be a big problem. They're not going to be able to explain it. And just by the way these special elections and the primaries have been going, it has to set off a red flag for the Republicans. They have to be worried at this point because they see the trend. You got 28 special elections, they lose every fucking one of them. They haven't flipped one election in the favor of the Republican Party. This obviously has to make them nervous and probably explains why so many people are just retiring and blowing town because we've got what, like 40 Republicans leaving the House at this point. That's
I think it,
devastating for the
well,
Republican Party.
I think it's closer to 60.
Could be, could be.
But that
Uh,
might be between both parties. I thought it was 60 some, or maybe that's between both chambers of Congress.
that could
But
be.
uh, it's bad. Republicans are jumping ship because they don't want to lose. And they figure, well, that's part of why Mark Wayne Mullen is like, yeah, sign me up. I'll be DHS secretary.
Yeah, I wondered
You
why he
know,
was doing that because he's a sitting senator. And then I heard he's up for reelection this time around, and maybe he feels like he's going to lose. So this is a way he can ride it out for
or he
another year.
or he doesn't want to risk it. You know, look at that one Texas State House seat. And I realize State House seats are different than uh, federal seats.
Right.
Yeah, a lot, not as many people are going to vote for him, and it was a special election, which does change things, different voter turnout and those kind of things.
Right.
Um, but that was a Republican safe seat, and the Democrat flipped 30 percentage points on it. No
That's
seat for
frightening
the
for
Republicans
Republicans.
is safe at a 30% flip.
No,
Nothing's safe.
no, nothing is safe. Because we hear about these Democrats coming in and flipping seats with 20, 30% in favor of Donald Trump just in 2024. But there's a lot of these Republican seats that are only like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points apart. And if you're flipping 30-point seats, these people in the closer races are definitely at risk and they've got to be feeling the stress.
Well, yeah, Mark Wayne Mullen, his seat is, I think he won by 28 percentage points,
Yeah.
something like that. So it's a 30-point swing, flips the seat against him. Um, Now, Oklahoma has something weird with it. If Mark Wayne Mullen does become DHS secretary, and that's not a guarantee because he
No,
had a pretty bad hearing about being DHS secretary.
it didn't go. No, it didn't go well. But fucking Pam Bondi made it, and Christine O made it. So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's also a little different, I think, because they're confirming one of their own. Because he's a sitting senator, I think they're a little, I could be wrong that they're giving it a little more weight because, it makes the Senate look bad if he goes from being a senator to that and fucks it all up. Um, but if he gets the position, the Oklahoma governor gets to appoint a temporary senator
Right.
that will only be there until the end of this term, which would be January 3rd.
Right.
He's not allowed, or she is not allowed to run for reelection by gentleman's agreement. It's an
Right.
unwritten rule. They could file for to run, but it would be by, handshake deal that they wouldn't. And then they turn around and they would have to run somebody entirely new in November, which when you take that incumbent off that ticket, it makes a big difference. It changes things.
Well, and that's my point is when we talk about how many people are retiring at the end of this term, you've got a lot of incumbents coming off the board, and now you don't have that name recognition, and it levels the playing field a little bit better for Democrats and Republicans because nobody there in those contests are known per se. They don't know what to expect, or they're not just used to voting for somebody. What do you think happens with Mark Wayne Mullen? Does he get confirmed? And if he does it really fucking matter? I mean, we had Christy Nome. If he doesn't get confirmed, there'll be some other dipshit that's just as bad coming in as long as Donald Trump is picking him.
I don't know if he gets through or not. I really don't because I think the Senate, because of how bad ICE and everything has been looking and making their party look, they may be giving it a little extra scrutiny, going, Jesus Christ, we got to be careful. We got and it's an election year.
Yeah.
They were a little more willing to let some of these dipshits slide right after an election, because it was 2 years till the election. Well, they probably figured people like Christy Nome, Pam Bondi, Cash Patel, and very basically everybody. Oh, they'll probably be fired by now, by the midterms anyway. We'll have somebody else to deal with. People will forget we ever approved them.
Yeah.
And now we're getting closer and closer to the election. They're going, they may remember we if this guy turns out to be a dipshit, they're going to remember we put him there.
Well, and people have asked me, why do you think Donald Trump's not firing people as much as he did in the first term? And I honestly believe because he doesn't have a lot to choose from. Who wants to walk into that shit show? Who wants to be put in a position to have to break the law and maybe be um, at risk of being prosecuted after the fact? Um, People know exactly what to expect. They'll get thrown under the bus when it's convenient for Donald Trump. I mean, the Christy Nome thing, for example, she spent $220 million on an advertising campaign, which is ridiculous. John Kennedy asked her, did Donald Trump know about it? She says yes. And there was blowback. So Donald Trump fired her because he said he didn't know. After the fact, Christy Nome comes out and says, look, man, I did it. The president loved it. He said, do more of this shit. The idea that Donald Trump didn't know about this money being spent on this campaign is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, if the president of the United States doesn't know when one of their cabinet members spends $220 million on something that's not directly part of the department, he should know that. And I believe he probably did because he's all about optics. Thought it was a cool video. Yeah, do some more. He wasn't thinking about how much it cost because he doesn't care. Um, but she said he did know. He said he didn't know. He's the president. She loses, gets her ass fired. And now Mark Wayne Mullen, who's no smarter than Christine Ohm, is going to end up being it if he's confirmed. And he's going to be put in the same situation. He's going to get hammered and fired in the long run. And the fact that he doesn't understand that is just truly amazing to me.
Yeah, that whole thing is ridiculous, if you ask me. I mean, you'd think he'd be aware of what's going on, that he'd be more concerned about taking the job. But, maybe he's thinking, well, if I put in for this job and I get it and we go from there, maybe I've got a shot at running in 28 or 32 running for president. Maybe he's trying to think he's got this as a stepping stone. Who the fuck knows? I
I
mean,
think
we're
Christy Nome
trying to
was
put
looking at running
logic.
for I think Christy Nome was looking to run for president. That's why she was cosplaying cowboys and fucking army men and all this stuff and taking all this beautiful video so she could set herself up to be a candidate for president. And when it comes to the Republicans, it wouldn't surprise me. She's a horrible candidate, but what else does the Republicans have?
Well, for 28, they don't have much. Um, Sounds like JD isn't committing to necessarily definitely running. He probably will. And there is some speculation that because wasn't Erica Kirk pregnant at one point,
I
like
thought
right
so,
after
yeah.
Charlie died?
Charlie's last gift.
Well, I thought it was. I thought it came out that she was pregnant, and the big rumor was that it was going to be JD Vance's.
Yeah.
Um, and I still think something's going to happen, and Usha's going to be gone somehow. They're gonna split. Uh, and rumor mill is at least that they're trying to set up Erica Kirk to either be his VP or to be first lady on the ticket, one of the two.
Wow. I got
Yeah.
to tell you, there's something very off about this Erica Kirk. Uh, I think she was a plant. She was connected to billionaires and that fucking shit in Romania. Um, I heard somebody say something on TikTok, and it sounds crazy, but not when you think about it. You look at the potential candidates for presidents from now into the future, and they don't really have anybody um, that's solid enough to pull an audience like Donald Trump does. Some people have suggested, and I tend to think it's true. It sounds very insidious, but it sounds true. Charlie Kirk was just a guy doing stuff on campuses for a while, up until a billionaire put some money into him, and then he kind of exploded onto another level. Okay. Um,
Hmm.
I think the intention was that they would build this guy up, make him popular amongst the young people because he was one of those guys that could talk like a Donald Trump, like nobody else they have. They don't have anybody else that can do that right now. Is to build this guy up with the intention of making him a presidential candidate ultimately. He's not, he wasn't old enough when he died, but ultimately in 32 or 36 or something, maybe that would be their guy to make president. But then Charlie Kirk noticed some weird things going on. He started speaking out against Israel, and then all of a sudden he's dead. It's all very interesting. I'm not going to get into the conspiracy of how he died or who was involved, but the idea that they were trying to build him up to be an ultimate presidential candidate, I feel pretty confident about that because he was the only one guy that could be their next Donald Trump, kind of a celebrity, but can talk real well and whip up a crowd. They don't have anybody else like that. So I could see them actually starting to do that. Then it went sideways. Charlie wasn't controllable anymore, and oops, he's dead.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the Republicans, right? Selling a brand of conservatism is not going to continue to work, especially not that far right conservatism that Donald Trump brought to the table.
Right.
Um, you know, we're shifting to the left with the younger people coming up. I just got a feeling that they're, you know, the more time that passes as Gen Z and even Gen Alpha, which I think is Gen Alpha may even start be getting close to voting age. Let's take a look. Um, yeah, Gen Alpha, the generation after Z, uh, includes individuals born between 2010 and 2024, which means by 28, the youngest of the or the oldest of them will be voting age.
Oh, good
So
Lord.
as yeah, so as Gen Z is now almost entirely of voting age, and now we're staring at the next generation past them, these younger voters. I just don't see conservatism being popular. The
No, and I think,
idea
and
of
I think that's why they jumped on Charlie Kirk's thing so bad, so
Mhm.
fast, because he was somebody who could relate to the younger people, and they know they need to draw some of those people in because it's not a good position for them at this point.
Yeah, you're right. And I think part of what happened with with Charlie Kirk not being controllable, is I'm not going to say it led to what happened to him, but they had to change their plans as far as him being the next candidate. Uh, but look at Donald Trump, right? He comes in and the younger people they get enamored by what he is talking about. And then he gets in office and people of my generation, the millennials, we've had the economy take a shit on us several times over the years.
Yeah.
We had the economy 9/11 tanked the economy. 2008 housing crisis tanked the economy. COVID tanked the economy. Um, we're used to it. And we're used to seeing politicians, you know, deal with it and we have an idea of what's coming. I think they weren't ready for it to be this bad this quick, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong,
Well, I
but I
don't think
think
so either. They should have known that. The reason it's gotten this bad this quick is because the Republicans didn't do what I expected. I expected them to pull the reins in on Donald Trump after he got elected, and they got their political capital from him. After that, he was more or less a liability, and he's proven to be an incredible liability for the Republican Party. But the Republicans were just too gutless and just didn't pull back on the reins. And now it's too late. I mean, not only do we have younger people going to be voting in 2028, but you got the mess that the Republicans are leaving here. Those two things don't bode very well for any Republican getting reelected because they're all going to get blamed for the higher unemployment, uh, fewer amount of jobs, the higher prices on groceries and oil, and the war and the Epstein files. There is nothing going right for the Republicans at this point. I mean, if you talk to Mike Johnson, he'll say, "Oh, I think we're going to win the House." Yeah, motherfucker. You might as well plan on your days spending time checking porn with your son because that you're going to have plenty of time for that.
Well, it's true, but he's got to say it, right? Like they've got to
Yeah.
say we're going to take the House. I mean, they're just trying to stop the bleeding, right? I mean, if he comes out and says, "Yeah, Democrats are getting the House in November," he might as well say, "I'm not running for reelection."
Right.
And there would be a vote of no confidence out, and he'd be out as speaker, almost guaranteed. Republicans wouldn't tolerate that bullshit. And while we're on the topic of speaker and the midterms, I'm going to throw this out there, uh, just because we had this come up in, I think it was your live, maybe it was Truckers,
No,
maybe
it
it
was
was
my
both.
life.
Hell, I don't. But where they were worried about, somebody in the comments was worried about Mike Johnson being able to fuck with swearing in the new Congress.
Yeah.
And
What they're basically saying is, will Mike Johnson refuse to swear in these people that would give us the majority in the House of Representatives? And he can't, but go ahead and explain why he can't.
so come January 3rd, the House of Representatives ceases to exist as it is. The
This
new
this session.
representatives come in. This
Yeah.
session's done. And the new session starts, and first thing they have to do is vote on a speaker. The old speaker has zero authority until they vote in a new speaker. So if Democrats have the majority, presumably it would be Hakeem Jeffries. And I
Yeah.
know some people hate him, but right now he looks like the odds-on favorite to be Speaker of the House.
Well, he is a minority leader. He would be the natural choice to be put up for Speaker of the House. And he'll either get elected to Speaker of the House or they'll have to find somebody else. But the best odds on favorite would be Hakeem Jeffries at this point.
Right. And then Hakeem Jeffries will be sworn in by, I think it's the House parliamentarian. It is a non-elected, non-partisan House of Representatives, effectively employee.
Right.
And they would swear in Mike, or not Mike Johnson, Hakeem Jeffries. Once Jeffries or whoever the speaker is gets sworn in, he then turns around and swears in the rest of Congress. The
Right.
Republicans won't be able to prevent it. Now, in the Senate, John Thune, as uh, majority leader, if the Democrats get the majority, I don't think he can stop it either, because again, he would be out. The majority leader in the Senate is not a congressional appointed position,
Right.
or not congressional. It's not a constitutionally appointed position. It doesn't exist as far as the Constitution is concerned. It is
He just
something that
happens to
has,
be the chosen leader
right,
of the
of the
Republicans
party,
in the Senate. Right.
right. So presumably, if the Democrats get the majority, presumably it would be Chuck Schumer. And I know people hate Chuck Schumer, but
Yeah.
presumably he would be the Senate majority leader. And again, he would be able to turn around and swear in all of the Democrats into the Senate, I believe. It might end up being uh, JD Vance. But even then, I don't think JD Vance is dumb enough to try to not swear in, you know, the majority into Congress.
Well, the important thing is whether Mike Johnson delayed this last one that he did for the Democrats or not. Legally speaking, constitutionally speaking, he has to swear them in. He's required by law to swear them in. So he can try to play that game. But the point you're making is the point that everybody's worried about. Well, if the Democrats get the majority in the House, then Mike Johnson will just refuse to swear him in. He won't be in that position if we get the majority in the House. He will no longer be the
Exactly.
speaker. He will be done. He'll be nobody. He may still be a representative because I presume he's got to run for reelection this year too. Um,
Well, all members of the House of Representatives run for re-election every 2 years,
right.
so he has to. But let's see. Might as well pull it up. I wonder if he is how he is polling.
Well, you would presume he's polling all right. It's Louisiana. It's all red, but I'm sure he's going to have a tougher time than he's ever had before. Do you think we're going to see some mainstays in the Republican Party in the House that don't win reelection? I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene was concerned about it. I think all those people that are retiring was concerned about the prospect of getting beat, even though they're the incumbents. It wouldn't be surprising if we saw some people. Well, I think you've said it before that we'll see some surprises in the elections, people losing that we don't expect.
We're going to see some people lose that we don't expect. We are going to see some seats flip that we didn't expect. I mean, you could see Lauren Boebert potentially lose. She had to flip to a more conservative district in Colorado. She could lose. You could see, who knows? And I just looked it up. According to this, his average is Mike Johnson is sitting at according to Real Clear Politics, his polling average 30.8% favorable to a 37.5% unfavorable. He's underwater in his own
Yeah,
district.
that's not
So he
promise.
may not even get reelected.
Wouldn't that be hilarious if he doesn't get reelected? That would be
Oh, that would be
hilarious.
great. If we could flip his seat in Louisiana, I mean, I've been saying Democrats could flip uh, you know, 40, 50 seats. It could happen.
So people have said that if we simply flip the majority in the House, not the Senate, say we only flip it in the House, that is enough to pretty much shut things down for Donald Trump. Would you agree with that? And that seems like a
Yes.
foregone conclusion. That seems likely to happen in a big way.
I mean, in order to get the House right now, not counting, there's three seats that are out there in the ether that haven't been voted that are open. You got
Right.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's seat, you got Mickey Sherrill's seat, and the one seat in California. We're going to get at least one of those. Mickey Sherrill's seat's a guarantee. Let's just
Yeah.
say we give the other two to the Republicans. They're sitting at 220 to 215 for the Democrats.
Right.
Democrats would need three pickups, just three nationwide, to flip control of the House and keep all the seats they currently have. I am convinced they don't lose a seat and they pick up at least those three. I think they get the House at almost a guarantee.
But in realistic terms, the winning three seats, giving them the majority, would give them a slim majority, much like the Republicans have. But based on what you've said before, it sounds like you're expecting a much bigger wave of Democrats coming into the House, where it might be 40, maybe 60 seats, which would be
30 to
amazing.
50.
Okay.
30 to 50 is what I'm thinking. Just based on how bad the economy is, all of the bullshit Trump's doing with the war in Iran and everything else, and how little this Congress is getting done. And by we've flipped 28 seats. Republicans have flipped zero since Donald Trump took office.
Right.
It is they are so unfavorable. I'm just looking here on Real Clear Politics. Election 2026 in a generic congressional vote where they just pull because a lot of places that haven't had their primary yet, so you don't know who the candidate's going to be. Would you vote for a Democrat or a Republican? Democrats are up 4.7% over Republicans, just in a
Wow.
generic nationwide congressional vote. I guarantee that almost guarantees the uh, Democrats the House. And it would prevent a lot of the damage that Donald Trump is doing.
I brought something up in the live. I brought this up a long time ago. People kind of scoffed at me about it. If the Democrats win the House and win the Senate, the next 2 years for Donald Trump are going to be absolute hell. He's not going to get anything done. Basically, a president with his balls cut off because he won't be able to accomplish anything. And there's going to be nothing but investigations and hearings every day, all day for the next 2 years. And all of it's going to be embarrassing to Donald Trump, which is the thing he hates the most, being embarrassed. And I said way back when, I said, if he gets in that situation, Donald Trump might pick up his football and go home and say, fuck it, I'm done. You people cheated me. Now you're going to treat me badly. Fuck you. I'm just going to go home and live my life. And a lot of people thought that was not possible. Then James Carville came out and said the same thing over the last few days. And I try to explain to people, they would say, now he's going to double down. He'll never admit he lost. He'll never admit he was wrong. And all of that is true. But if you've ever had an experience with a narcissist, the end always comes where they've got nowhere to turn. Everything they say doesn't work. Their diversions, their distractions don't work. And when they're cornered like that, yeah, they get messy and they get ugly and they get dangerous. But when there's absolutely nowhere to go, without fail, narcissists always run away. And I see that as a possibility. If everything goes wrong with Donald Trump in the midterms, Senate, House gone, it's just him sitting there by himself for the next 2 years. I could see him faking an illness. Maybe he doesn't have to fake an illness, but doing something to get away from there because I think he doesn't want to go through the embarrassment that he's going to be set up for. And, he thinks maybe he can try to pardon himself or whatever and just get away scot free and live whatever life he's got left to enjoy the spoils of grifting the United States of America.
Yeah, he may run, but as I think I said it on your live, the only way he does that is if he knows for sure that he is not going to see the inside of a jail cell for anything at all, because he is terrified of what could happen. He
Yeah.
doesn't want to end up, uh, in prison, and he knows state charges don't carry the same thing as federal. And he's been through the state system. He's been convicted of state charges. He's going to be terrified. He is going to try to cling on to that power for as long as he can. And unless it comes with a pardon and a guarantee of no prosecution from any state anywhere, I don't see him doing it. He'd consider it. I just don't know if it'll happen. And he'd probably only do it. I don't think he'd take any sort of mental issue or health issue and say, because that would be him being less than perfect. And he can't admit to that either.
Well, one thing he has to consider those 34 felony charges. Now, I don't remember how the term goes. It's with prejudice or without prejudice. And I think this was without prejudice. And somebody was asked, could he be uh, uh, sent to jail for something like this? And they said he could. I don't know if that still holds true. I don't know if they'd follow through with it. But once he walks out the door, he has those 34 felonies that have been adjudicated, and he may have to deal with that. He's got other legal problems too that will come raining down on him once he doesn't have the protection of the presidency. His life after being president, if he even survives, is going to be an absolute fucking horror for him. And I don't know that he understands it. I mean, people say Donald Trump is really nervous and upset about all the things going wrong. And I'm not so sure of that because people like Donald Trump are delusional. In their mind, they think everything's going great. all the sycophants around him are telling him, "Oh, it's great, you're doing this, and it's awesome," because they're afraid to tell him the bad news. I don't know if he gets the potential risk he's in for when he leaves office, uh, but he without question is, and eventually he has to leave. It's not like he can stay there forever and protect himself. The day's going to come, and when it does come, it's going to be unpleasant for that motherfucker.
Yeah, well, I looked it up. It is with prejudice is where it's dismissed permanently without they can be refiled. And all of
Good.
those charges, the ones that were not brought before a judge, were all dismissed without prejudice, which means they could be refiled as long as they're within the statute of limitations.
Yeah.
He's got hell awaiting for him. Does he understand how bad? Probably not. All he knows is he wants to avoid it. And that's why he keeps floating this idea. Well, maybe I'll run again. Maybe I'll do it a fourth time. Oh, it's happened before. Maybe I'll run a fourth time. He's doing it because he is terrified of any potential consequences, and he knows he's relatively safe while being president. He's also, you know, being able to grift like hell and make a whole shit ton of money.
Well, the reason he says he was going to run for a third term, and this is what I know about narcissists too, is that he knows legally he can't run for a third term, but he's thrown it out there, basically telling the people around him, "Yeah, I'd be up for running again," in hopes that somebody, lawyers or whatever, would try to come up with angles for him to run again, to do his bidding. He doesn't do anything on his own. He's always trying to coerce or leverage people into doing what he wants done. Everything's a threat with Donald Trump, from the war all the way down to the people in his cabinet. What we, we heard the story about what's her name, Wiles, Susie Wiles. She is the chief of staff, and I've explained that she appears to be the only adult in the room in the White House, which is
Mm-hmm.
scary when you see all that's gone on right now. And she is the adult in the room. She's not been able to control a lot of things if she's the adult. But now she has breast cancer. She's going to continue working, but not from the White House. She's going to do it by a Zoom or whatever. Um, and one of the reasons Donald Trump's been able to do what he's been able to do is because there's nobody stopping him. And now with Susie Wiles out of the office, still on Zoom, but out of the office, and she's come up lame, if you will, with this diagnosis. I am a little concerned about the White House even going more hog wild, with the likes of Stephen Miller and all these people in there in Donald Trump's ear without Susie Wiles being a filter. That's concerning to me.
Oh, it's very concerning. She was one of the adults in the room, and I thought she was going to have more control over what was actually going on. And with what she has prevented, at least what we can assume she's prevented, and with as bad as it's gotten, I shudder to think about what it could be without her there.
Well, yeah, and they're not putting another chief of staff in. She's keeping the job. She's just going to do it remotely. And I think you kind of need to be in the White House to shut these things down. I mean, you got people going behind your back. You got people getting behind closed doors, getting Donald Trump by himself. Now they're not going to have any problem doing that. Steve Miller, whoever. Susie Wiles could always come in and get the fuck out of here. Don't bug them with that. She's not going to be there to do that. She might be able to, instruct them to do certain things, but you need somebody with a relatively sound mind in there, kind of separating Donald Trump from the fucking crazies. And there's a whole White House full of them.
Yeah. And I think his deputy chief of staff is Stephen Miller. So Stephen Miller, if he's the architect behind all of this bullshit, he's going to be the one making up all the rules as he goes, and it's going to be even worse for everybody around.
I saw a video of him. It was a loop that was showing him. I remember listening to some of those coast to coast shows and all the conspiracy theories that said, there are reptilian people in this world. They live underground and they're negative and they're causing problems in this world. They're reptilians. Yeah, yeah. Of course, there's a bunch of people look like lizards that are causing problems in this world. That's ridiculous. When I watch this video of Stephen Miller, he looks a little reptilian. You know, he's got the beady little eyes, the round head. He looks like the insurance gecko guy, except he's not as pleasant.
Well, actually, I can see that. I can. One of the TikTokers I like is Greg Johnstone. He does skits and he impersonates everybody and
Oh yeah,
everything.
yeah. I think I know you're talking.
And whenever he has Stephen Miller pop up, he plays it more like a Nosferatu or a vampire, and it turns into a jump scare every time. And and I think of that every time I think of Stephen Miller. I think of that more than I think of the real guy. Um, but
Yeah. What do you?
he's a
What did
creepy
you?
motherfucker.
What was your take on Scott Bessent when he was being interviewed and then called away to the Situation Room, talked to Donald Trump, and he came back visibly shaken. I mean, he was
I don't
nervous and
know.
he
That
was
that whole
kind of
thing
going
was
off into
weird.
him. Do you think maybe he said something during the interview that Donald Trump didn't like and he brought him back to reprimand him, or he was given some news
Probably.
that he didn't want to hear? Or
It was probably a reprimand because that's how Donald Trump is. He was probably watching it live and going, "That motherfucker said something I didn't want to hear." And he probably came out, "You do that again, I'm gonna fire your ass," and blah 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 blah.
it's got to
He
be
probably ripped
weird
him
to
up
have
one side and down the other.
when you look at Letnick or Scott Bessent or any of these guys that work for Donald Trump that are billionaires in their own right. It's got to be tough for them who have a fair amount of power in their own world to be treated like a little bitch by Donald Trump and have to fucking sit there and take it. I don't know
You
how
would
he
think.
gets them to do it. If I'm Scott Bessent and I'm worth $1 billion or whatever I'm worth, and Donald Trump talks shit to me, I'm just going, well, good talking to you. Look at the time. I got to go. Fuck yourself. I would do that, especially when you're in an administration that's sinking every fucking day. When do you
Well, I
stop
think
taking
they're
the shit?
well, I think they're worried about the outcome, right? They're worried about just like Kristi Noem and Donald Trump and everybody. They're worried about when shit hits the fan, who's going to be left holding the bag and what criminality is there. They haven't got their pardon yet. So, they Donald Trump treats them like shit. They got to sit back and take it because they're afraid of what could happen on the backside.
But even if they do pardon him, anybody, if they pardon anybody, they still have to deal with the legacy that they created by being involved in this mess. They pretty much shit can their business life. Marco Rubio. This guy is ruined his career as a politician. Relatively young guy. Um, I mean, what do we know about Marco Rubio now? He wears shoes that are too big for him, and his ears look like fucking saucers that you use to slide down the hills in Minnesota here. It's just, I mean, the guy's going to get destroyed.
Yeah. And I thought he actually had a potential to be, uh, a Republican candidate down the road, and he doesn't anymore. They've all ruined their legacies. And it's going to take a little, as long as the Democrats can get in and actually get something accomplished. I'm worried that they're not going to get enough done in the first 2 years of whoever wins the 28th general. But if they can get something accomplished and actually make things better for the American people, maybe we get universal health care and something like that. They've got the chance to be in control for quite a while because the Republicans have got nothing left.
They've got nothing left. Assuming the Democrats win in 2026, they get the majority in the House and the Senate. The first thing the Republicans are going to do is going to say that the Democrats got nothing done because in those 2 years between 26 and 28, they aren't going to get much done. And it's not the fault of the Democrats, assuming they have the majorities. They'll be able to get bills passed, but Donald Trump is going to veto everything that the Democrats send up to the White House.
Yeah, they're going to. What their best hope would be is that in his dementia-ridden brain, that he puts it on his desk and chooses to ignore it, and it just becomes law 10 days later. Well, 10 days not counting Sundays.
It's not counting Sundays.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump is so into owning the libtards. I can't even imagine him doing it. He's going to try to veto it. The only way we win, we might get enough people to override a veto in the House. If we win the Senate, probably not enough to override uh, a veto in the Senate, though.
It really depends on if they're looking at 28. And if they've decided to start cutting ties, they could end up moving toward overriding his veto more often than what they have.
Are you still standing by that? That these people aren't going to cut ties until after the midterms. I mean, we're getting closer to the midterms. It looks more and more like that to be the case. But that, if they do that, it just seems too late for me. They're not looking at the signals here. Is Donald Trump going to
Well,
fail? We see the polls
what
for the midterms. We know he's going to say. We know he's going to fail. So why would you wait till after the midterms?
what I think they're going to do is I think they're waiting, like we talked about a little bit ago, that they're waiting until after their primaries are over. If they're going to move on him, otherwise they're going to wait till after the midterms, and then they're going to be staring at 28, going, "Okay, we got to right the ship, we got to fix it all, and the only way we can do it is by heave ho and Donnie," and that's
Yeah.
probably where they go.
So what do they do then? They just kick him to the curb and vote against him, and he's
Hmm.
just a weak ass bitch from that point on.
If they don't remove him entirely and try to stick in JD, and because I said before, I think their plan for JD Vance is to end up trying to run with him on the campaign of those damn evil Democrats had the House, they had the Senate, they blocked him from doing anything. You got to give him two or give him another term with a Republican controlled Congress so he can really fix everything.
Now, with JD Vance, if the Republicans want to get rid of Donald Trump and they impeach him, it's almost certain they wouldn't impeach him until after the midterms. Because
Mm-hmm.
if they impeach him before the midterms, um, that means that JD Vance can only run one more time. If they do it after the midterms, then he could run two more times, which is
After
ridiculous because
January
he can't.
20th.
Right, but which is ridiculous. He can't win anyway. But just fucking Republicans, how do they think?
Right. That's exactly what they could try to do. But I can see their strategy coming from a mile away. Their whole plan is going to be let's make it so let's blame the Democrats that they blocked JD from fixing everything, even though we've
Yeah.
seen 2 years of Republicans not being able to fix a damn thing.
Well, yeah, they'll come up with some bullshit and try to use it, but it's going to be in the midst of people struggling to buy gas or heat their homes or buy groceries and stuff. And this can only be blamed on the Republicans, specifically Donald Trump, but the Republicans that supported him, they're going to have this hanging around their neck for the next couple of years, and there's not much they can do about it. And let's assume this Iran war thing does become a quagmire because it could. If we start putting people on the ground and continue bombing and doing all this stuff, this could go 6 months, a year. It could go 2 years. It could go 20 years, like Afghanistan, if we don't do it right.
Oh, exactly. And it could become one hell of a mess. And the we only have Republicans to blame. And it's going to hurt them in the elections.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people have been concerned about, well, if we go boots on the ground, they're going to call for a draft. I don't think they may call for a draft. I don't think there's any chance at all that we get a draft in this country, especially for a war like that.
Well, if we get a draft, it is definitely game over for the Republicans at that point. I just don't see it's not going to the same level of patriotism around the draft in Vietnam where it started versus where it ended. We're closer to the ending level where people are just going to be like, yeah, fuck this shit. Why are we fighting a forever war? We just got out of a forever war. Entirely different ball game.
Yeah, but there's a lot of people worried about it. People with teenage kids, they're worried about. I'm not sending my kid into the draft. I think for that to go through Congress, that would be political suicide for anybody to do it. And I don't think they have the taste for it. I mean, Donald Trump said today that, well, I think I'm going to wind it down. He's feeling the pressure of once again fucking up, and he would like to pull America out of this war, but that doesn't end it. That doesn't
No.
necessarily open the Strait of Hormuz. As far as I'm concerned, right now, it seems to me like Iran wants to do whatever they can to destroy Israel. Israel attacked them, America attacked them. They're going to be in it for the long haul. And whether Donald Trump pulls out or not, it's not going to make a difference. That war is going to continue. And then Donald Trump is
Yeah.
going to be pressured to do more shit even after he pulls out.
Yeah, it's going to go for a while. And even if Donald Trump says, yeah, we're over it, we're done with it, whatever, that doesn't mean Iran's done with it. And if they decide to keep pushing at it and pushing at it, it's going to continue and it's going to get that much worse for us. And he's not going to be able to just ignore it.
And Iran has put out this fatwa against Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, basically threatening to kill them. How seriously do you take something like that? Because I got to be honest with you. If someone says they were going to kill me, that would freak me out a little bit. If Iran said it, I'd be really freaked out because they're kind of good at that shit.
Well, given everything that they've done, I'd be really concerned if I was either one of those two, just because of what that those two people have with that region.
I haven't been following it that closely, but what's the status now with Netanyahu? Is he alive? Is he dead? What the fuck's he?
I don't know. I don't know. From what the only videos I've seen made it look like they might have been AI. And who knows? We'll have to wait and see what they actually come out with. They probably don't want to admit it because that would mean Iran was successful. And, uh,
Well, what
you
happens
know,
if he is dead? I mean,
they have to
how
move
does
on to
that
the next
change
person.
everything? Well, they have to move on to the next person, but they have to presume that that next person would do the same things Netanyahu would do. And it doesn't sound like there's a lot of taste for Netanyahu in Israel. While he is the leader, a lot of people don't like that motherfucker. And the
Yeah.
only
So I
reason
don't know
he's
what they
sticking
do.
there is so he doesn't go to jail. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to expect with this. I'm not very confident that Donald Trump will pull him out. And if he does pull him out, I don't know that that fixes it. This is one of those things that Donald Trump's done. You know, he does put on tariffs. The stock market goes to shit. So he takes off the tariffs. He can kind of fuck with it and manipulate it a little bit. Not this one. He's gotten in too deep. He's up to his waist in dog shit. And it's going to be hard for him to get out of this and look good at it. There's just no way.
It's
Uh,
interesting you chose that because she decided to come over for attention.
yeah, that's Cecilia.
Yep.
That's Eric's dog. She's a sweetie.
Yes.
Love dogs. I love
But
dogs.
you said dog shit. About the time she said it, she was right over here for attention. I thought that was funny.
I'm
But no,
right here.
yeah. As I said on, I think it was Truckers Live, that she leaves things in the yard smarter than Donald Trump.
Yeah, no shit. No shit. No shit. All right, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I know you just got off work. You sit down here for an hour and a half to do this. You look tired. Um, and I respect somebody who puts in a full day of work and still does this. That's impressive. Tell people where they can find you, assuming they haven't.
Well, you can catch me on TikTok at Analytical Iowan. You can catch me on YouTube, Spotify, or Blue Sky also at Analytical Iowan. Um, those are the main spots I've got my content. Looking in some other spots, maybe. Just got to see if it works with all of the automation so I can keep my stuff up current all the time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, for those of you listening, thank you for taking the time. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.